What's going on, guys? It's Adam P, and welcome back to more Newcastle United transfer news. Full time at St James's Park last night. Newcastle United 2, Espanyol 2. That is our first of two matches at St James's Park this weekend. Of course, we are taking on Atletico Madrid later on today. Just an announcement, we are going to be talking about Eddie Howe's press conference in detail last night against Espanyol. I will personally be in the press conference room today, so we can hear and see what Eddie Howe has to say, of course, about the weekend, about the performances, and in these style of videos, of course, about the transfer news as well. And I want to start off this video. I feel so bad for Eddie Howe. I feel for the manager so much. He has no control of the situation behind the scenes. Eddie Howe has continued to stay in the press conference despite the meetings with Isak and despite Isak still training by himself at the training ground. Eddie Howe has continued to back the claim that he wants Isak to go nowhere. He said it throughout the summer, and even now, after everything that has happened, Eddie Howe has continued to stay. He wants Isak to go nowhere, and that is actually also quite a revealing and just shocking truth of the full situation, because Fabrizio Romano has actually revealed that Isak was offered a contract earlier on in the week. A new contract again was offered out to Alexander Isak, but Eddie Howe's not the one giving this information out. Newcastle United's not the one giving this information out. So who's telling the journalists, and who behind the scenes is leaking information out? We know who it is, but of course Eddie Howe has continued to state that Isak is more than welcome to stay at Newcastle. He doesn't want Isak to go anywhere, and I feel for the manager so much. It's truly horrific to see from Eddie Howe, because he wants to keep the player. We love Eddie Howe. He's done wonders at this football club. Eddie Howe was the one who was able, in Isak's point of view, to turn what is, when he came in from Sociedad, coal. He turned that coal, Eddie Howe, into diamonds, and now that's being used against him from Alexander Isak, and more importantly, his agent. And we're going to talk about his agent, and we're going to expose the agent in this video. His name is Gonzalo Gaitan, so the way it works, and we're going to show his agency. So these are the agency clients, not Gonzalo's clients. This is the entire agency. Look at the pool of players they are in possession of. Alexander Isak is by far the greatest ever player. And when you look at the transfer values of the other players, with the exception of Emilio Martinez, who was, to be fair, a class player, there's no one in that list I would take at Newcastle. There's generally no one in there I would take. And even Martinez as a goalkeeper, so his value is quite low. Isak is by far their biggest client, and the only client they have that is a gold mine. He is their ticket for gaining success, and he is their ticket for them being able to succeed as an agency brand. Now, the reason why I mention this, look at it in the agency point of view. They need Alexander Isak to leave Newcastle this summer. They need that story. They need that sale, because it's the biggest transfer in world football, and they can attract themselves to new clients. If Isak leaves this summer, and bear in mind, Isak has proclaimed Liverpool to be his dream move. So if Isak leaves to join Liverpool this summer, the agency company has completed their job. They have fulfilled and satisfied their client. So by satisfying their client, it attracts our football players and the world's biggest football players to come and join up with this agency. And not only that, if Liverpool can secure the signing of Alexander Isak for the cheapest possible deal in their point of view, they will have gained a good connection to Liverpool, which means Liverpool in future transfer windows will come back to this agency and will pick the players from that agency they want to sign. And it also builds connection to clients, journalists and football clubs. The agency is not doing this for Alexander Isak. The agency is doing this because it benefits them while screwing Newcastle United over. And that's the big point here. I mentioned before about information being leaked out. Eddie Howe has confirmed in the press conference yesterday that my conversation with Isak will remain private. I won't tell the journalists anything. We won't discuss anything outside the meetings, which means that Newcastle United and Eddie Howe are kept quiet. No one outside of Eddie Howe's meeting inside Newcastle United knows what's going on, which means, because of the fact Fabrizio Romano knows that Isak's been offered a new contract, how's the information getting to Fabrizio Romano? One or two options here. Option one, Romano is lying, which to be honest, could be a possibility, but I don't think so. So for option two, someone has told Fabrizio Romano's information, and if it's not Eddie Howe and it's not Newcastle United telling Romano's information, who is? The answer is simple. Alexander Isak and his agent are now telling journalists information, and they are now going against Newcastle United, which means they are purposely screwing our football club over, which is damaging us in the transfer market because Isak's value will go down in his sale because everyone knows Isak's going out and everyone knows that Alexander Isak wants out. So his value will drop, meaning Newcastle will get less money for the sale. Also, it damages us in the transfer market because in terms of bringing players in, any striker we target now, those clubs know we are desperate to bring that striker in because Alexander Isak's going out. So they're going to charge more money. And hell, we might even lose transfer ties because of that. And then you go behind the scenes, our teammates aren't going to be pleased. Alanga, I'll give you an example. He joined the football club this summer. Of course, that's a Swedish teammate of Alexander Isak. What do you think he's going to feel like if Isak leaves this summer? And then you look at Eddie Howe, a manager that is pleading in the press conference to keep Alexander Isak. He wants Isak to go nowhere. And it damages Newcastle's image in the transfer market because our ownership looks bad because, well, if our best player is leaving our project, what does that say about our project? Which means that in our marketing sense, players don't want to come in because, well, if he's going out of our project, why would we join that project? It's so much noise in the background and it's so damaging to our project. And it's because of Isak and his agent. The agency company is going against Newcastle United. We were the ones, by the way, who brought Isak in from Real Sociedad. No one else took the punt. No one else took the gamble. No one else splashed serious money to bring him in. We were the ones. Now, Isak is world class, by the way. He's always a player that is able to get that ability going. But we were the ones that nurtured him. We were the ones that were able to grow him into the player that he is. And this is how he treats us. He wants to go out to Eddie Howe's meetings and leak information. He wants to go out with these meetings with Eddie Howe and tell the entire world what's going on. Eddie Howe doesn't want that. The club doesn't want that. And Eddie Howe, even now, is continuing to keep those meetings private. So what's going on here? It's simple. Player wants out. Player's going to push to go out. We can't keep Isak. As much as I love Howe, there's no return for him. Let's be honest. Once the player's head is turned, he wants out. We can't get him back. And even in a miracle sense, let's say Isak stays this summer, why is he going to give 100% Newcastle? He's going to want out in 12 months anyway. A new contract to Isak would include a release clause. What's the point? If he's not going to give 100%, what's the point? Why delay the inevitable when you can sell him now for the most money possible and then we can invest and bring players in who are not going to damage the club behind the scenes? Cut him loose. I can't make any clearer. Cut the guy loose, get him out, let him have his move, and ideally, if possible, get him away from Liverpool, but it's just not going to happen. I think Liverpool is the only club that's going to go for him, and the agency, as much as I don't like it, is probably going to get what they want, but they're devious. Agency companies are devious. Agents are devious. They're always going to be looking for their client's best interests and, more importantly, their best interests. I don't think they've got Isak's best interests at heart here. And I would go as far as say they're thinking about themselves, which I can't exactly blame a business for doing so. But they certainly aren't doing what's best for Isak. This is very damaging for his reputation. I know you get a movie once, and I know in a few years' time, fans will fickle, they'll forget about it, everyone moves on. But that's damaging for his reputation. Clubs won't forget that. Newcastle United would never forget that, and we will never forget that. Reputation and how people look at you and how people perceive you matters. And Isak has prioritised money and prioritised fame and success over that. And of course, in a football career, well, time is short. Careers end in a matter of years. Of course, Isak wants to make that move now because you're never guaranteed that tomorrow. However, by doing so, has tarnished what he's earned at Newcastle United and what he's been able to build at Newcastle United. We were the ones that took him on. We were the ones that nurtured him, and he is the one that screwed us over. The story ends like that. Our legacy with Isak ends like that, and he ends on a sour and tarnished note, and that's just the unfortunate and sad reality from this. I love Howe, I back Howe, and I would defend Newcastle United on this because they have been screwed by Isak and his agent. They are the ones behind the scenes that are continuing to leak information to journalists. They're giving journalists stuff, and that's why Newcastle's getting done over on social media, because they're the ones that are making the stories, they're making the headlines, and it's just truly despicable. How is struggling, how he's doing everything he can in the transfer market behind the scenes. It's been out of his control. Do you think it's a coincidence Isak wasn't on the Asia tour? Do you think it's a coincidence the journalists know everything going on with Isak? Do you think it's a coincidence Isak was training by himself in Spain when Eddie Howe did not know that? Do you think it's a coincidence Alexander Isak is training by himself at the training ground? It's all him. It is all his agent. They are the bad people at Newcastle. They're the bad eggs of the bunch, and that's it. People can criticise Newcastle, people can criticise the ownership, and people can criticise the manner in which the Isak stuff has happened before this stage. But his actions and what has happened since has made Newcastle United's potential flaws with the Isak situation null and void, because, well, how could he criticise Newcastle when this is how he's behaving? Is this how a player would behave when wanting to go out of a football club? I don't think so. And Liverpool fans, I've made this nice and simple in this video. I've made the situation as clear as possible. You can continue to call me biased. You can continue to call me negative towards Isak. I'm not. I want Isak to stay. Listen, if I had a chance to keep Isak, I would have took it in a heartbeat. But it's not sustainable and it's not attainable. He needs to go out. Hell, I'm saying for Isak to go to Liverpool. I'm telling you to go and sign Isak. Put good money down and sign Isak now. I'm telling you to go and do it. I don't want this problem. And you can sit there, you can laugh now, you can gloat about this all you want. What happens in 3 years' time when all of a sudden Real Madrid's interested, and let's say Liverpool's time over the next couple of years may not be as good as it was projected? What happens if Liverpool's project the next couple of years doesn't go as well as you guys suggest? What happens when Real Madrid comes knocking? Isak's done it once. I reckon he'll do it again. If he wants to go to Madrid, if he wants to go to PSG, if he wants to go to Barcelona, if Liverpool stops being his dream move in a couple of years' time, what happens next? I'm telling you now, he's done it once, he'll do it again. So you better hope Isak stays with you for the rest of his career, because otherwise you're going to have this headache to deal with. Not our problem anymore. We'll move on. We'll sell them. But we won't forget. That's the message. Nice and simple.